It's exactly 11:37, and Ilonka Badenhorst is our next guest. She is the General Manager and Lobbying Committee Chair at WASPA, which is Wireless Application Service Providers Association. They're all about identity theft on social media and a whole host of other issues. Ilonka, good morning. Welcome to the program, and great to have you here.
Good morning. It's lovely to be with you this morning.
Now, when we look at the issue around privacy on social media and to guard against identity theft, it's frightening, actually. And I'm wondering just how widespread is this practice?
You know what the reality is that identity theft, the term identity theft, was actually coined in 1964 already. Ooh. So this is not something new. But when we usually think about identity theft, we think about somebody stealing your wallet and then running off and using your credit card, or somebody imitating to be you in real life. But it's broadened so much further than that. Now we're looking at identity theft specifically in the online and mobile spaces, and also on the social media platforms. And if you're asking how prevalent it is, well, recent studies have shown that almost 5% of all consumers were the victims of identity theft in the year 2019. They also state that this accounted for almost $17 million just in 1 year with identity theft on online platforms.
Okay, tell us a little bit about your organization and who would engage with you in a situation of identity theft? That's the one question. And what else is it that I should imagine you sort of an ombudsperson in this space, or some sort of caretaker as far as social media issues are concerned?
100%. So the Wireless Application Service Providers Association was founded in 2004, and we've got an ambit of representing and self-regulating the market. So there are a couple of companies that, when they want to operate within this space, so that's offering value-added services to consumers, they have to become a member of WASPA, and they have to adhere to our code of conduct. We then also have teams that monitor their activity on a daily basis to make sure that they actually follow the rules and that operate within the boundaries that have been set. And we also have a complaints department where any member of the public can come lodge a complaint if they believe that one of our members has not followed the rules. Now, in the effect where identity theft specifically comes in, our code has very strict rules with regards to a consumer's personal data, what they are allowed to capture, what they allowed to store, what the information they need to provide to consumers before they can actually do anything with their information. So WASPA is basically a watchdog within the mobile space to make sure that consumers can use all of these services with confidence.
There was a time a couple of years ago when there was a huge outcry where, I'm not sure if the banks were involved, but a lot of retail outlets were on selling the data that they had on their customers. And then we as consumers used to get all of these calls, people trying to sell insurance and every other thing under the sun. And you kind of wonder, but where and how did you get hold of my information? How serious was that issue? Has that been resolved? I'm not sure if it falls under your, under the ambit of WASPA, but it was and still is a very real and big issue.
It is. The reality is consumer data is big business. Everything from every single time you interact with anybody online or in person, they are capturing your data and they're storing it and they're using it. And most of the times consumers are not even aware of the fact that they're using this. I mean, some companies have created a whole business model around capturing consumer data and then selling it on to third parties. Now, the question would be, why would they want this data? Well, if you think about social media platforms as an example, we are using those apps mostly for free. They're not charging us anything. So they, at the end of the day, have to make some money, right? Nobody, there's nothing like a free lunch. So the only way that they can do that is by using targeted advertising. And the only way that targeted advertising works is if these companies have enough personal data about consumers in order to target them for that. And the big thing is that it's usually consumers themselves that actually give away this data a lot of the times.
I'm thinking I'm thinking of young people today. They are so active on all sorts of social media platforms. I'm thinking of bloggers. I'm thinking of people that use Instagram all the time. And I've been told I kind of vie away from these platforms. I use them on a very minimal basis. But I've been told that you can secure your information and only X amount of your social contacts have access to this information. But I also wonder, why do young people and also older people do this? Is it about becoming famous? Is it about their 15 minutes of fame? You know, and then you also get people who boast about the number of followers they have. That's great. You are doing something great. But how much are you opening yourself up as far as identity theft and other issues are concerned?
Well, if we look at statistics, they say that just in the last year, 30% of all social media users were the victims of either identity fraud, or identity theft or fraud. And of those, usually Snapchat, Instagram, and Facebook account for almost 46% of these incidences. So if you are on a social media platform, the chances of actually being exposed to this type of criminal activity is very, very big. But there are ways that you can protect yourself. I think I just want to highlight 4 or 5 things that, when you say it out loud, it sometimes feels like such a logical thing, but a lot of consumers actually don't take the steps to secure themselves. As an example, be the master of your security and your privacy settings. All of these different apps and sites give you the option to actually go inside and set your own privacy, set your boundaries, set the audience that can review your posts and see your information. Take control, take a little bit of time and go protect yourself. The second thing that we've picked up quite a lot, all of these apps give you the option, like in the optional fields, like the About Me fields, to give as much information as possible about yourself. And this is so dangerous, especially for people looking out for personal information. Our advice would be, limit the information that you share. For example, don't give your city and your province that you live in. Just give the province and keep it a little bit more vague. Never, ever post some of your personal information like your ID number or your home address. As an example, somebody would post on their online or social media that they are going away for the weekend. And if the account is set to public, anybody can see that, which means they know that they're not home. So that opens them up for house robberies and break-ins and stuff, because they know that there's not people at home. Then another thing that I think a lot of people do incorrectly is limit your location settings. Don't always log in and tag where you are if it's not important. It's important to sometimes keep a little bit of your privacy to yourself. And the fourth thing, it's so important, is limit what you share about your children on these social media platforms. We tend to want to brag and post, but it's incredible the amount of information that these criminals can get just by us sharing that type of information.
You've just preempted my next question, which is the whole issue around pedophiles and targeting children, little vulnerable children. What should we not be posting on social media, very especially in this, in this setting, in this scenario with pedophiles and children that get very easily led away?
It's unfortunately such a real threat, and every single parent should be aware of this. Criminals are online and they're looking for vulnerable children. For example, now with school that's just started again and going to school, post the picture of your kid on the first day, but try and cover the emblem of which school they're in, or in the background, don't post at what school they are at, because it's quite easy then for them to see, well, this specific child is in this area. And also then to maybe interact with that child about information about their school, posing to be somebody that they know from school when they're not. So that's the first thing, is limit the actual information about the school. But then secondly, limit what you publish about your kids to your limited audiences. And as far as possible, when your kids are on online social media, you have to be the parent that's proactive, that teaches them about being safe within that mobile environment, to always come to the parents if they see or hear from somebody that they don't know, and keep an eye on their devices. At the end of the day, you remain the parent and you are responsible to keep them safe. So having an eye over their things, checking what they are searching, And also, for example, implementing stuff like YouTube Kids and not allowing them free access to just YouTube, or Google for Kids, which limits what they can actually access and get exposed to, is very, very important.
I'm also wondering, a lot of us, or a lot of young people, very especially at the beginning of the year, start applying for positions all around, whether locally or abroad. And there is so much of personal information contained in their CVs. Are they putting themselves at risk by posting their CVs online or to the preferred company or companies?
So this is the reality. We basically live in a digital era where, like, even though with COVID, a lot of the things don't happen in person anymore, and you share all of your information online. Here, consumers have to be smart. Usually, if something doesn't look right, it usually isn't. And we must remember, for example, with job applications, the moment that they ask you to give them money in order to, for example, post your CV, etc., then you've become the customer. You are not the employee at that point in time. So be wary about these scams going around where they are targeting people saying, apply here, we've got vacancies. Do a little bit of homework. Go Google the company, see if they've got an official website. Rather choose to submit your CV via their official website and an email address than filling everything online and hoping it's a legitimate company, where usually there's a chance that it might not be. So there are ways to keep ourselves safe. And I think it's all about reading.
Okay, I've personally experienced this. I'm on a couple of on a couple of groups, neighborhood groups, family groups, etc., etc. And from time to time, you receive warnings or posts, etc., which seem interesting or seem that you need to share this with other people because it's important. Very especially with job opportunities, the Department of Education is offering X amount of jobs, etc., etc., etc. So in your zeal to help other people, you forward them on, only to get a very stern warning that this is fake news. How do we prevent that from? What is it that I ought to do that I don't forward on fake news some of the time or all of the time?
I think it's important to realize that the criminals have become very smart. So this is where they, for example, mimic a company that looks legitimate and that you are aware of, and etc. But what they do is they embed those advertisements with malware and spyware. So the moment that the consumer actually clicks on some of those links, it downloads malware onto your device, whether it's your cell phone or your laptop, or spyware. And then this can then run in the background doing a bunch of nefarious activities, whether it's collecting your information. It could lead to transactions on your devices which are unauthorized and you weren't even aware of. And, this falls within like phishing and smishing, which we say is a scam that's ongoing and happens on a daily basis. Here again, it's so important to try and verify the source. Usually if you see something on Facebook and you see that the URL is something very strange with a lot of characters in, don't click on it. If you get an email or an SMS with the link on and something doesn't look right, always look out for spelling errors. That's usually quite a big giveaway, etc. Or if you click on something and they want you to first do a survey or complete certain questionnaires, just go out and delete it immediately. Preferably if you get something, rather, if it looks legitimate, like you said, if you can see something on the ad, rather go to the official website and try and verify it from there, than clicking away and exposing yourself to potential threats.
Is there an application perhaps where you could kind of download and then just fact check information before passing it on? Is it wishful thinking or too simplistic?
There are actually some companies that specifically they specialize in trying to determine whether something is a scam or fake news. The easiest way usually is if you just type it into Google, like the main heading of whatever it is, and say true or false or fake news or not. It will bring up the articles where other consumers would probably have investigated, and they will give you information on a fact-finding basis on whether that source was legitimate or not. So it's actually quite easy. It is a type of way for consumers just to check. And that's why I'm saying it's always try and verify before you take something as legitimate, and always try to stick to your verified sources. As an example, when you download applications, always try and download them from official app sites, for example, Apple or your Google Play, where they go and verify these apps. Go read the reviews and the comments that are posted. Usually if something is amiss, the consumers are very quick to jump on and say, this was fake, I was scammed, don't trust these people. So they give a lot of information if you're just willing to do a little bit of investigation on your own.
Hacking. Recently I'd heard about a young girl or a young lady who had some nude pictures of herself on her phone. Somehow the other got out there. She then accused the people who came across these pictures of having hacked her phone. I'm wondering if that is in fact true, or was she liberally forwarding on those pictures to friends and family, or friends or boyfriends, or whatever the case may be? How difficult or easy is it for people to hack into your phone?
It's actually a lot easier than people think. And unfortunately, it's with very simple things that consumers can do to protect themselves where they are exposing themselves. As I just said, when you download from a third-party site, like whether it's music or an app, you potentially have downloaded spyware onto your phone where they can actually review your information on your phone, switch on your camera without you knowing, listen to your calls or conversations. So it can happen. I think one thing to warn consumers about, for example, when we're talking about hacking now and how easy it is to expose yourself, is public Wi-Fi spoofing. So this is when consumers go to a restaurant or they're at the airport and they're traveling and they go and they say, oh, here's an open public Wi-Fi network. It usually says open access or free airport Wi-Fi or something like this. Those types of accounts would usually then say it's for free, but you have to create an account, like a username and a password, in order to access the 30 minutes or the 60 minutes. Now, a lot of them are spoofed. What happens is that the consumer then fills in the information and the hacker is then capturing and intercepting that information. Now, consumers usually use the same username and password for a lot of their accounts. Just after that, they can quickly run. The moment they can use that username and password and it's the same that your Gmail account is or your Facebook login is, just like that, they've got so much information about you and they can hack all of your information. So here again, it's about operating wisely. If you see a public Wi-Fi network, don't use it with your own sites. Always use a unique username and password. Avoid using it if you can. If you have to, don't go onto your banking sites. Don't go onto your social media platforms, as an example, because you're giving them access to all of this personal information.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it does happen. With a scenario like the previous thing, we obviously do have legislation, and with the new crime security bill that's coming out very soon, this type of thing will specifically become a criminal offense. And currently under the Films and Publications Act, as it stands, if you forward like a nude picture from somebody else without their permission, you actually become a distributor of pornography, and that could be fined under our law.
Okay, however, what business do you have having nude pictures of yourself on your phone? I mean, come on.
I would always say, if you don't want it in the public space, don't have it on a phone or a laptop or anything that is connected to the internet. If you want to stay off the grid, you should stay off the grid, because you should always know that anything you've got on your phone or your laptop, there is always the potential that that could be hacked or released or used even without your knowledge or your authority. So be smart about what you have on your devices.
Ilonka, I've been told that you must always log out of your social media platform once you're done. What exactly is that telling us? What is that we should or shouldn't be doing?
So here I would say that specifically relates to if you ever use, it's not your own device that you use, or if you use a public internet facility as an example. Once you've done on your site, make sure that you have logged out. That's the first thing. But even on your apps that you've got downloaded on your personal device, we tend to log in once, and then for the next year, we just kind of stay logged in. It's quite good to log out every now and again. You'll pick up that if your account was hacked, a lot of times there would be other activity on your account, so that's that you can check that there hasn't been an interception of your information. And logging in and out also forces you to every now and again change your passwords to something unique, to something a little bit more difficult than the previous time, and that it's not the same across all of your devices. So I think it's just good general behavior to log in, log out, and to change your passwords regularly.
What else do we need to know? I'm thinking about how to set strict privacy settings. I'm thinking about, which you have already covered, don't tag or post your specific location, which you said was very, very important. Know your friends and connections. I mean, really?
You see,
Sure, we
that
know
becomes quite an interesting one.
Yes.
We've got some people that would never have anybody on their social media platforms that they don't know in real life. But now you've got influencers and people that this is literally how they make their money. The more followers they have, the more people that they can engage with, the bigger their audience. So it becomes difficult. But I think it's then up to that individual to take the steps to potentially protect themselves. You hear this a lot, unfortunately, that celebrities and social media influencers are the victims of identity theft, where other people go take their photos, create different or duplicate accounts, and then either ask for money or, engage with people pretending to be the other actual legit person. So, yeah, it's very difficult.
What other scams should we...
Unfortunately, they want to share or not.
Okay, what other scams should we be looking out for? I mean, you've talked about those scams where they tell you, congratulations, you've just won X amount of money, or a family or somebody with a similar name or the same name as yours has left you a fortune and all of that nonsense.
I'm actually so rich. All my money is either in Kenya or Nigeria at the moment. I just have to go get there to go fetch it. I've got so many uncles and family members over there. It's ridiculous.
And sadly, there are people who fall for those scams, isn't it?
Sadly, it's very true. So this will fall into the category of phishing or smishing. Phishing is where they approach you via email, and smishing would be when they approach you via SMS. But normally they would say, write something familiar, say that you've inherited something, or you've won the lotto, or you've won some company's competition, and you have to phone them back and give some information, or just click on the link and give us the following information. Now, calling back already will expose yourself to giving certain information away. Also, clicking on the link, there, they might ask you to fill in information, or by just clicking, they've already downloaded some malware onto your phone. And that spyware runs in the background, and without you knowing, they're collecting that information anyway. So if it's too good to be true, I usually say, just delete it. Just delete it, just cancel it.
All right. What else do we need to know? And for people listening and watching us this morning, if they have some really serious concerns, maybe they've been hacked, maybe they've a victim of a phishing scam, what recourse do they have? And are there any chances of ever recouping the money that they've lost through this type of fraud?
So that varies, but usually we would say to consumers, the moment that you think that you have been a victim, go into all of your accounts immediately and go and change all of your usernames and passwords immediately. That's always the first step to stop potential further impact. If there's a financial loss and it's linked to any of your accounts, immediately contact your bank so that they can either freeze accounts or that their fraud departments can start investigating. If it's something like your airtime that you think is depleting or data that's being stolen, you can either go to your mobile network operator, or you can visit our website to lodge a query, and we'll investigate on your behalf. And then, of course, if it's a little bit further, if it's like identity theft where somebody's assumed your actual identity, if it's on social media, immediately go report it to that platform. If necessary, also change your accounts, etc. In more serious cases, you will have to go to the South African Police Services, where you can then have to open a case there. The problem is to identify the criminals. That's usually the most difficult thing to do. And as a basic consumer, we don't have the resources. We don't even know when we were hacked or how we were hacked. We just know that we were hacked. So it becomes very problematic. So here, the only thing we can try and do is prevent it, because once it's happened, it's very, very difficult to deal with.
And in terms of money lost through these scams via your bank account, perhaps, is there insurance in place with the banking fraternity to perhaps reimburse you after they've done their thorough investigations?
Yes, I think if it can be shown there was proper criminal activity that led to the crime or the fraud happening, then yes, they usually can assist. However, the problem is usually that if they have when you log onto your online banking, etc., it usually has a pop-up, be aware of this scam, don't give away your personal information. We will never send you an email or call you asking for X, Y, and Z. If consumers have, unfortunately, unwittingly and unknowingly, but given away their own information in that regard, then it shows that the consumer was unfortunately
was
omitted to
negligent.
take, they were negligent, and they omitted to take reasonable steps to protect
Yes.
themselves. In that case, they are not always as willing to assist because they feel that the consumer exposed themselves to that threat.
Ilonka, that is where we will leave it. It's so good to know that there's a watchdog body like yourselves out there, and hopefully you will continue to take good care of our personal and other interests online. Thank you once again. Go well and have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
That was Ilonka Badenhorst from WASPA talking about online fraud, hacking, and everything else that goes with it. It's 12:02. We will be back with you in a minute or two with Zainul Kaji from OCAV to talk about a very important webinar that is taking place this Saturday afternoon.
I like this one, yeah.
It's also good, eh?
Yeah, I loved it.
I like the first one a lot, but maybe you can do this one as well, eh?
I really love
because I think the others are, the next one is okay, but yeah, these two, this might be a bit boring for other people. So let's just do the first two.
Kim Helder.